Adrian Wojnarowski recently came out and gave an update regarding Zach LaVine and his potential trade situation. So we'll break that down, including Shams breaking down the plan, the timeline, when we can expect the Toronto Raptors to make some big decisions regarding this roster. Because as I broke down in yesterday's video, the Raptors are in no man's land right now and have to decide whether or not they want to go all out on competing this season, especially where they don't have a draft pick this year, or they want to bottom out and tank, blow it up, and see if we can somehow get to the bottom six and maintain that the protections to keep our first round pick for this season. So lots of stuff to break down. Without further ado, let's jump to the first topic of discussion. First thing we're taking a look at is a Zach LaVine trade update. Now, people that have been following the Toronto Raptors, keeping their ear to the news, following Raptors Digest, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to plug that here at the beginning of the video. But basically, Zach LaVine has been rumored to be on the trade block, and basically the Bulls as well as Zach LaVine are both interested in getting a deal done, and one team that has been named in multiple rumors and reports as a potential suitor for Zach LaVine has been the Toronto Raptors. And this is really big, especially last week, the week prior, as things really start to fall apart for the Chicago Bulls, more so than they have been for the Toronto Raptors this season. And they're looking to move off of some of their top stars to probably make a race to the bottom in the Eastern Conference and try to get one of those top picks. But basically, a report just came out from Adrian Wojnarowski, a little mild Woj bomb a couple days ago, that there currently isn't a trade market for Zach LaVine right now. Usually, there's a little more conversation going around amongst teams than he's been hearing right now around the league. So basically, the Toronto Raptors included, there's not a lot of smoke, not a lot of chatter regarding Zach LaVine and a potential deal going down. And since we break down all the rumors and reports, I wanted to break down when it seems like things have fizzled out, not talked about. I've heard the Pistons are also a team that might potentially get involved in a potential Zach LaVine trade, but basically the Raptors don't expect a deal to happen with Zach LaVine, at least in the next few weeks, in the next, month or so, because I know a lot of Raptors fans were excited to potentially acquire another star to turn around this season faster than possible. And the Raptors haven't been horrible this year. I mean, if you look at the standings now at this point, right, we're currently 11th, so out of that sort of play-in picture, kind of an ugly spot to be in, the worst possible seed you can really be in the NBA, as you're a treadmill team, you're not in the playoffs, and the Raptors, especially where they don't have their draft pick for this upcoming season, just an ugly position for the Raptors to be in. But again, we're close to the teams ahead of us, and this makes the Raptors have to make some difficult decisions, make some tough sort of moves and choices, and that sort of leads us into Shams' update, as the plan has been revealed, at least from Shams, saying when we can expect some big decisions to be made from Masai Ujiri, from Bobby Webster, from this Raptors front office, as they are needed. They are certainly needed. We thought a lot more stuff would happen this summer. Don't turn down your phone. Don't put it away. Put it in your pocket, because stuff is going to be happening. And yes, we fired our head coach and Nick Nurse. Yes, we let Fred VanVleet walk, but no real significant structural changes happened to this team. And Shams basically came out and said that he thinks as we get closer to the trade deadline, Masai Ujiri likes to wait until he's closer to that trade deadline. He'll evaluate his team, and we'll see if any of these guys finally do end up getting traded. And as I broke down in yesterday's video, the Raptors are in a precarious spot. Maybe other players could open up, which makes more sense for this Raptors squad than a Zach LaVine, because I feel like it would make more sense to pull the trigger on a Zach LaVine trade right now rather than waiting to the trade deadline, waiting till, you sort of, the season's already a write-off, it's sort of a wash. But, this Raptors roster does, I guess, continuously seem to be in evaluation mode from this front office team, but I guess they do have a sample size to look at here now. If you look at our schedule over the next sort of month or so, it's not brutal. It's not a devastating sort of slate of matchups. Miami will be tough, but then we have Charlotte, New York again, Atlanta a couple times, Charlotte, Denver, Sixers, and that stretch of games will be tough there. But, then we go to Utah, Washington, got a tough game against Boston, but Detroit, the Cavs, right? The Raptors don't have these are a lot of winnable games in theory for this current Raptors group. But the issue is when we play teams like the Hawks, the Knicks, these needed games against Miami, the Jazz, whoever the heck we're going to be faced up against, time and time again, we'll get a win, we'll get a sort of momentum swinging victory, and then we'll follow it all up with a couple of just really heartbreaking losses. And that's the sort of plate of being a 500 level team, a 500 level basketball club. And no Nick Nurse now this season. No Fred VanVleet has been playing pretty well for the Houston Rockets now at this point. I mean, the Raptors gotta win some of these games. They gotta prove to Masai Ujiri that this team shouldn't be completely blown up for pennies on the dollar, which frankly would be devastating for me as a Toronto Raptors fan. Not necessarily because it'd be the wrong decision at the current plate, but the Raptors had a lot better options at last year's trade deadline. Heck, over the summer, than the deals we're going to get offered now, because the rental of Pascal, of OG, of Gary Trent Jr., that would have been at this year's sort of summer, which would have been a full year. Teams would have had a full training camp with these guys. It would only be a couple of months, for a playoff contender to pick up these guys halfway through a season. So if these deals go down, don't expect some serious value, some serious sort of deals, some players to be coming back for the Toronto Raptors, and don't expect us to be bad enough to really catch some of these bottom feeders. And I've been looking at this graphic. I'm going to be pulling this up a lot more now as the season goes along, but there's no world where we're catching Detroit, San Antonio, or Washington to guarantee us a bottom 3 seed, which guarantees us one of our draft picks, because we are top 6 protected lottery selection. So basically, if our pick doesn't end up in the bottom 6, it's going straight to the San Antonio Spurs as of, that Jakob Poeltl trade we made at last year's trade deadline. But we'll see what happens with the Grizzlies, the Blazers, the Hornets. The Hornets just lost LaMelo Ball, so frankly, I don't think we're going to be able to catch them in the race to the bottom if we do end up going in that direction. Probably be able to catch the Warriors, maybe the Chicago Bulls, but the Grizzlies, if they're playing well. Again, the Bulls are looking to bottom out as well, as we discussed early on in this video, but if they can't get rid of Zach LaVine, then we'll see what ends up happening with that roster, that group down there. But again, the Toronto Raptors just have us all in a state, as they have been. They've kept us in here in the past season and a half, especially state of just confusion in terms of what the future is going to look like for this Raptors team. And the fact that we don't have our draft pick this year makes me still root for this team to completely win. There's no real point to bring out the Kazooz if it's no realistic opportunity for us to get our draft pick to really force our way to the bottom here now at this point. So I don't know. Let me know what you guys think about this Toronto Raptors group, the players that we could potentially deal away. Do you think it would make sense to acquire Zach LaVine? Again, the Raptors don't have a lot of guys with a lot of trade value. So not only if you bring in Zach LaVine, would you have to sort of be confident that this team can turn things around immediately, you also have to be confident that things will work out for the future with our contingent of free agents that we have on this roster, because you'd have to give up first round picks in the future, distant first, in order to retain or in order to acquire a Zach LaVine via trade, because guys like Malachi Flynn, Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher, as a recent report pointed out, don't have any value. So it's going to be tough. Big things are going to have to be decided for this Toronto Raptors team, but don't expect them to happen now. Expect more evaluating and waiting for this Raptors squad ahead of the trade deadline, and hopefully things will end up going down. But let me know what you guys think about all this Toronto Raptors news. Subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.